Hello, my friends. Hello, my life warriors, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Day In, Day Out podcast. Woo! Today on episode 232, I was very lucky to have Professor Pete Alexander on the podcast. He is an entrepreneur, educator, best-selling author, professional speaker, and more. We talked about a number of things on the podcast today. Basically, we talked about his most stressful moment in his life, how he overcame that stress in his life. We also talked about, his journey to Mount Kilimanjaro, what sort of challenges he went through on that. And we also talked about his podcast, amongst a number of other things as well. Yeah, very interesting fella. Enjoyed my time with him. I look forward to, talking with him again in the future. But for now, enjoy the podcast. The podcast. Sit back, relax, and bugger. Let's go. Peace. Oh,
Go.
hello, my friends. Hello, my life warriors, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Day In, Day Out podcast. Woo! Today on the podcast, I have Professor Pete Alexander, who is an entrepreneur, educator, best-selling author, professional speaker, and part-time imp as well. Yeah. But before this podcast, people, let me just say this. He was giving me crap about British weather. Like, you haven't seen the sun, la, 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 la. And yet, he comes from Seattle, which is just as bad as the UK. How are you today, sir?
Meanwhile, I'm
Professor?
so fantastic, and I really appreciate you having me on the show and your listeners' time as well.
Yes. Look, apart from being, how can I say, a part-time imp,
Mhm.
how did you become who you are today, Professor?
Well, it lifetime worth of experiences is really how it happened. I mean, I continue to grow as I each day actually. So, when you're a lifelong learner,
Mm-hmm.
you come across some really interesting things, and I've been exposed to a lot of different things and a lot of different learnings and a lot of different concepts, and it shapes you over time, and our biggest challenges are the ones that make us who we are.
Yeah, and this is the thing. Okay, in my research, I know you've come through your own sort of challenges as well.
Mhm.
And this is over the last sort of few years, what you went through a bit of, how can I put it, a rough spot, let's just say.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, it was a situation where stress actually almost killed me, and it actually that incident happened about 4 years ago, but it all started more like 14 years ago because what happened was in 2008, I was facing a what you would call a perfect storm of stressful activities that culminated in my diagnosis with stress-induced diabetes. The crazy thing is, I didn't listen to my body about what stress was doing to it. So what I did, like so many people do, is I continued to burn the candle at both ends for another 10 years until I ended up in the emergency room with a severe case of what's called diabetic ketoacidosis. And the for those of you that listening who don't know what that is, basically my body was eating itself alive because of my stress. And here's the crazy thing. In 2008, when I was diagnosed with
Yeah.
the stress-induced diabetes, nobody in my family had diabetes. It was just me. And I people were shocked, because I exercised regularly, and I didn't eat horrible. I didn't eat great, but I didn't eat horrible. And it just happened. I ended up losing 30 pounds in 30 days. And at first, it was, wow, this is great. I'm in my mid 40s. I'm losing this weight that I haven't lost since I was in my early 20s. And then all of a sudden, after that 30th pound came off, I thought, I better get this checked out. And sure enough, stress-induced diabetes. But here's the crazy thing about what happened when I was in the hospital. So after I got went to the ER, they admitted me right away. They actually thought that I was having a heart attack the way I looked. And the doctors told me that I was 1 hour from being comatose. And that was because my blood sugars were so high because of the stress that the medical grade glucometers could not read it. The lab estimated that my blood sugars were 8 to 10 times higher than normal. And even that, I got transferred into the ICU for several days. And after a couple days in the ICU, my blood sugar started to come down, at least a little bit more reasonable. They were still higher, but in the 200s range versus something like 800 to 1,000.
Yeah.
And then when on my second day in ICU, I remember receiving a text from my boss at the time, who was a micromanager. And my boss says to me on this text, says at about 6 o'clock in the morning, you have a webinar you need to run at 8 o'clock. What are you going to do about it? Now, mind you, my boss knew I was in the ICU. So first of all, I didn't have my work laptop with me. So I was sitting there with my phone trying to reschedule this webinar, pushing the boundaries. The nurse who was on staff at that time, they were checking my blood every hour. So you don't get much sleep in a hospital if anyone's ever had that delight. But she comes and she takes my blood as I'm trying to reschedule this webinar. And my blood sugars, which had come down into more reasonable numbers, shot straight back up like a 90-degree angle. And she says to me, pretty much a complete stranger, she says to me, as a matter of fact, she says, you realize that's what, looking at me on my phone, that's what put you in this hospital bed in the first place. And it was like the epiphany moment that I needed to hear, because I knew that I wasn't doing things right. And other people had told me I was totally stressed out. But did I listen? No. I just kept on plowing through, because that's what a lot of, type A, entrepreneurs and workers, that's what they do. And so I sat there for most of that day, really contemplating in my hospital bed, what was I doing, and realizing that I was trading my health for my career. And that was a really bad trade.
Yeah, look, come on now. Look, you're in the hospital. Okay, I'm sorry, but let me just be quite clear. Your former boss is an asshole. Like, okay, look, because look, here's the thing. He knows where you are. He's in hospital. Okay, maybe, just maybe, if he's a micromanager, he micromanages someone else to do your webinar at that precise time. Not
you would think
you a call while you're in your hospital bed trying to recover, and it's like, hey, I'll send you this message at 6 in the morning. What is he doing up at 6 in the morning if he's not just going to the gym? Look,
it was something, because at that was the last med device company I worked for, and this person had replaced the complete opposite wonderful manager who I had worked with at 4 different companies, who the big difference was the person who I had worked for at 4 different companies trusted me, knew that I was doing the work. Whereas this micromanager had no trust of anyone who reported to them, and just decided they had to micromanage. And it was horrible, because that's exactly how they managed every meeting. That's how they would come into team meetings late, would never apologize. We would give reports in each of our areas, and they wouldn't take that report at face value. They wanted to unearth everything, and it was like it created this environment that was just not conducive to building rapport and building teamwork.
Yeah. No, I often find when you do have someone who micromanages everything, it's not the people they micromanage they have a problem with. It's they have insecurities within themselves because they
Yes.
can't actually do the then how can I put it? They are not super confident in the job they do. So they need to control everything to make sure it's like, yeah, I'm doing a good job. I'm doing a good job. But I have to be on everyone else's back. Hence the reason why they're not organized with their timekeeping. Hence why they're not organized with basically just general organization skills. Hence the reason why they have to have this sort of air of toxicity because everyone's on edge, but no one will have a good, proper look at them, if you get what I mean. To like, okay, you screwed up or you are screwing up. So they won't do that. So it's like, yeah, it's all on you guys, if you get what I mean.
Absolutely. Very insightful. You're 100% right based on my experience. And it's true. They
Mm,
have, there's that, I always have, well, I shouldn't say always, but part of my learning that I've had over the years
mm,
is that when somebody acts in a way like that, there is definitely something behind the scenes that's causing it. And I think, that lack of self-esteem or confidence,
mm.
um, that trust issue, that they can't, that they don't want to delegate confidently to someone. That's saying more about them than it is about the people who work for them.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. So like you're in your hospital bed, like you've had this epiphany moment, you're
Mhm.
pondering. So did you like roll out of bed the next after you recovered a few days later and went, okay, that's it. I'm making a life change. Or did it take you a little bit longer to sort of like get there? Because
Well, yeah, it's a really good question. So what I had to do was I had to think about both my career,
mm,
but also I had to think about the financial impact of that and realize, okay, what is most important? And the thing that kept on coming back to me was the fact that if I kept on going the way I was going, I wasn't going to be around long enough to meet my future grandchildren. There's just no way. And so I thought, okay, I bet I got to do something. I got to take the chance here. I looked and I said, okay, I had done well for myself in my career to the detriment of my health, but at least financially, I had saved enough that I could take this, let's say, break from the corporate world. And so the day after I got out of the hospital, what I did was I decided I'm just going to resign and focus on myself for the first time in my career.
mm,
So I submitted my resignation, and I actually sent my resignation to my boss's boss because my boss's boss was who was there before the micromanager was there. And he just explained it, and she was quite supportive of it. um, my micromanager boss continued to try and get me to do stuff, and even up to my last day, my very last thing was I was going to run one more meeting on this important project that was going on. I gave the proper 2 weeks notice and everything, and that meeting was in the morning, and she wanted me to continue working in the afternoon. And I thought to myself, no, I'm not doing it. I'm done. And
what are you gonna
so
do? Fire me?
exactly,
Like,
exactly.
hey,
And the sad thing was is that going back to the lack of self-esteem or confidence that this person had, I remember in meetings where they would have no problem putting down people who reported to them in front of everybody else. So it was, it was like, wow, that's the kind of thing that you tell somebody, behind closed doors, one-on-one conversations, not in front of the group. So, but what I ended up doing was, after that, I started focusing on myself, and I started trying all these different stress relief tools and techniques that I could learn about. And most of them worked to some extent, some of them didn't. But here's the crazy thing. So what I noticed was that as I was applying these tools,
Yeah.
not only did my stress go down, my glucose numbers as a diabetic went down, my weight went down, and my energy level went way, way up. It was like I had discovered a fountain of youth. And this is the most telling thing about it. If you look at pictures of me back in 2008, when I was first diagnosed with stress-induced diabetes, and you look at pictures of me now, other than a little bit more gray hair in my head,
I never
I
know.
look, yeah, I look younger today than I did 14 years ago. That is nuts. That is nuts.
You've got to look at it this way. Like, okay, look, like I'm a believer of there is time there's times in your life where you've got to step up to the plate and work hard. You're not going to achieve anything. It's just you've got to know the sort of level where you're like going, okay, if we use a car analogy, if you're redlining a car all the way through, eventually something is going to break. If you like
Correct.
sort of like go up to the red line, bring it back down, go up to the red line. You can go for longer. You can go for much more.
Yes.
You mentioned wanting to see your grandchildren. Look, doing a job which is highly stressed with kids in the mix. And look, kids need your time and attention.
Mm-hmm.
And look, that they sometimes will not like, hey, what you doing? How you doing? Hi, let's talk, let's play, let's do this. I'm trying to get something done.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to have this conversation right now and have a good time. But you got family responsibilities, job responsibilities.
Right.
And if you're going again and again and again, we're to the level where, okay, you're getting emails at 6 a.m. to do stuff at 8 a.m. Yeah, I can only imagine it would go late into the night as well. So with all of this, I don't know where you'd find the time to actually sort of stop, breathe, or even acknowledge you are you, because
Right.
it's like I'm dad. Okay, yeah, I'm working, Pete. It's like, yeah. When are you just Pete? In that
Yeah,
regard?
it's exactly right. You have to set boundaries. It's interesting, as part of the high stress that I had, I remember multiple things going on in my life back in 2008, that, my dad was dying, and his responsibility, or things, his affairs had to be taken care of. My mom had major surgery and didn't have the insurance for proper physical therapy, so she needed help. My kids were small at the time and wanted dad's attention. I had my business, my landscaping business, that was all on me to run. And oh, by the way, my marriage was heading for a divorce. So, it was all these things that were just piling on. And, I didn't know how to set boundaries with those. But now it's a different story. And what's interesting is, in what I've learned in my research and in applying these things to my life, is that we don't try, in that wonderful analogy that you gave about the car and doing redlining it and bringing it back. The reality is, we don't need to get rid of all of our stress. What we want to do, because there is actually some good stress, and then there's bad stress, as we know. But the good stress, it's referred to as eustress, eustress.
Okay.
Eustress is the stress we get when we're doing something we enjoy, we love, etc., we're passionate about. And so that kind of stress is good for us because at least it helps us get things done.
Mm.
That's important. Where we want to focus our attention on stress relief is in two flavors of, it's referred to as distress sometimes, but I call it negative stress. One is rumination about the past. And if any of your listeners have ever experienced guilt about either doing or not doing something in the past and continuing to beat yourself up because you did or didn't do something. Well, the reality is we can't change the past.
Yes.
So we can learn from it. There's positive learnings from it, but we have to let it go. We have to, because if it continues to churn inside of us, it's, the going back to the red line analogy, in our bodies, it's, the classic weakest link of the chain.
Mm-hmm.
And, our bodies will send us consistent messages that something is wrong and you need to take care of it. My body certainly did before I got the stress-induced diabetes, but I didn't do anything about it. I just continued to push, push, push. And then, so my pancreas appears to be the weakest link in my chain. So listen to your body there. The other flavor of negative stress that we really need to be aware of and do something about is anxiety about the future, something that may or may not happen. Because let's say that there's some sort of event going on in our future that we think, okay, it's going to be bad. It's going to be bad. It's going to really be bad. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, hey, like this is the thing. If you're going to think it into existence, you'll speak it into existence, then you'll basically act it into existence. It's just one of
Yes.
those things where you put your focus, that's where the direction normally goes,
Absolutely. You manifest it.
Yeah.
And so the reality is, instead of looking at the future and saying it's going to be terrible, why not imagine, what I always love to recommend to people is imagine, let's say it's a great one. A great one is a difficult conversation that they have to have with somebody. And they think, oh my gosh, this is going to go horrible. They're going to get upset, or, it's not going to go well.
Yeah.
Well, why not imagine 5 minutes after that conversation that it's gone very, very well. And if it's somebody, you're shaking hands, you're hugging, you're smiling, whatever that happens to be. And imagine that, because if you go into that conversation with the mindset that it's going to work out the way it's supposed to work out in a positive way, you can manifest that outcome. But exactly as we're talking about, if you send the negative energy out there, that the reality is whatever energy we send out to our universe, we will attract that same energy back to us. And so we will manifest a negative outcome if that's what we expect it to be.
Yeah. It also sort of ties into sort of like those are the sort of consistent actions you can take. Like, because like the whole thing is people always forget, and I've said this before on the podcast, one of the most powerful things in this universe is consistency. It's a case of if you do a consistent bad thing, bad things will happen, but like randomly you'll get something thrown your way which will be positive, even though you're doing bad things.
Mm-hmm.
If you do good things will happen, but also equally, yeah, the universe will throw out a bad thing to you, even if you're doing the right things. It's just if you're doing the negative, you're all of a sudden, yeah, things are not going to generally be the way you want it in your world. If you do the positive, yeah, things are more likely to be the way you want it to be in this world. And like it's one of those things, like sort of when you're in it, and as you were, it took you sort of 10 years to sort of like stick your head up out of the parapet to see, like, go beyond the wood of the trees. It's like if you had someone today, or if you were talking to your past self, How would you sort of put the sort of key markers where it's like, and look, you're going down the wrong path. This is the mark check. How would you sort
Yeah.
of do that?
So one of the things I think, if it's early on in the in the process, like let's say you're early in your career, that's a great one.
Mm.
Because I think about my daughter, who has been a type A personality, and unfortunately I must have given that to her, and she just pushes herself and pushes herself and pushes her, and she has just started her career, and she's telling me that she's working 60 plus hours a week, and I'm thinking to myself, my gosh, she's just straight out of school, and she's doing that already. So it's a difficult one, but early on, what I would what I would definitely tell my younger self is to listen to your body. And because as I mentioned earlier, our body gives us early signs.
Yeah.
So they're going to be areas that are either we're mentally or we're physically stressed. So mentally, it might be a lack of concentration instead of being able to focus on something right away. Or maybe it's a mood swing and you go happy to sad or angry at a moment's notice. It's like, yikes. Or it could be panic attacks that you're having that you never had before, or maybe alcohol or prescription drug addiction. That is something that shows that you're mentally stressed. The physical ones, it's things like the most common one is back and shoulder stiffness. And the reason is because if we work at a desk, we tend to hunch over at our desk when we're stressed.
No idea what
And
you're talking about.
yeah, exactly. And so that is going to be consistent pain in your back and shoulders. Maybe and this was more common prior to the pandemic, but frequent colds. Instead of like having one cold a winter season, you're getting one cold every month. That would be a sign that you're physically stressed. Sleep, either getting excessive sleep where you're sleeping 9 hours a night or 10 hours a night and you're still not rested, or you're not getting very much sleep, you're getting insomnia because you're worried about stuff. That is physically a physical stress moment. Digestive disorders, so like no amount of Pepto-Bismol, the pink stuff, is fixing your stomach. One that I really can relate to is headaches, and reaching for the Excedrin bottle every day or every other day instead of occasionally. Well, guess what? You're getting, if you're getting headaches all the time, there's something wrong there. And then the weight fluctuations, either, gaining or losing weight rapidly. That's another one. And as I mentioned with before I was diagnosed with stress-induced diabetes, 30 pounds in 30 days. And I wasn't dieting. I wasn't doing any special exercise. It just started coming off. And I was in my mid 40s. So there's no way that should have been happening.
Put it this way, put that on Instagram as a diet, example.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, I've got a surefire way for you to lose weight. Get diabetes.
It might kill you, but you look fantastic.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
So all of those would be, if you can pay attention and think, what, that sounds like me, one or more of those, then that's an indicator. And the reality is, if you can take care of it and address your stress by, just doing 1 or 2 minutes a day, find an activity that helps you, and you do that on a daily basis, the compound benefits over time will be enormous. You just have to start. And that's the other thing that I would tell my younger self. I mean, I kept on thinking, I don't have time for this. I don't have time for this. And the interesting thing is, before I wrote my book on stress, I started looking at what books are there on there. And almost every book out there was 200 to 300 pages on either theory or maybe one activity. And it's like, I'm thinking to myself, who has time to read a 300-page book on meditation or deep breathing. The reality is most of us who are working and have a lot of things on our plate have maybe 5 minutes, and that's it.
Yeah, no,
So
but yeah. I'll put it this way: if if you're a parent, you got to be super organized with the sort of free time you have,
yep, yep.
basically doing very intensive things very quickly. So I mean, trying to sort of say calm down and relieve that stress. No, but like one of the things I would simply say is, and this is where I think it sometimes is difficult for people, they don't have their R&R. Like basically,
Yes.
when I say R&R, like some people go, oh yeah, I mean rest and relaxation. But it's like, okay, reflection and responsibility, reflecting on what their personal thing is and basically taking responsibility for things they can control. Look, I can't control what the weather's going to be tomorrow, but I can control like whether I'm going to put on a jacket. I can control if
Yes.
I'm going to go out. Those are within the realm of my power. I think a lot of people like think you're not God, you're not omnipotent. Control what you control, be responsible for that, and basically reflect on things you need to reflect on to make that right for yourself, you know?
Absolutely. You hit one of my favorite stress relief tools is don't try and control the uncontrollable. You're 100% right. What we can control is ourselves. We can't control our kids, even though parents think they can. Reality is. And when the pandemic hit, and I had so many people that I was talking with who were saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe this. This is so stressful. I can't go to work. I only can work from my home, and my kids can't go to school. They have to be here and at home and online." And the reality is, you can't change that. You can't control that. But what you can control is your mindset about it and taking action that affects yourself. And it is so, so important to realize that, because as humans, our natural inclination when we are faced with a stressful situation is to worry about all aspects of it. And in general, about 50% of your worry is on things that are beyond your control. And so if we think about it, so let's say if 50% of our mind share is worrying about stuff that we cannot change, and we say, okay, we can't change that, we're not going to worry. So like make two lists, one list of what you can control, one list of what you can't control. And the list that's what you can't control, you mentally say, I'm not going to worry about that. And you apply as much of that mind share to what you can control. So let's say getting closer to 100% optimal of what you can control, then you can affect change. And when we feel like we are in control, when we feel like we can change something, our stress goes way, way down.
Yeah. Like this is the thing. One of the things what always fascinates me when like I hear this from people when they go, yeah, I can't change. I'm incapable of changing. It's I think that's some of the biggest lie and BS like people tell themselves on a regular basis. Because um, if a person becomes like like if they were single and now they get into a relationship with whoever they are, that person might be, they have to actually change to sort of like, yes, be in that sort of give and take of that relationship. So they have made like a change. If the relationship doesn't work and they go back to being that single state, okay, fair enough. But changes has happened along the way. So it's like I've learned things about what I want from a relationship and what I don't want from a relationship. So the next relationship, fingers crossed, should be better. And they change again because it's a different person. Now, if that relationship sires kids into it, okay, the person you were as like, yeah, running free and single and ready to mingle, that person, it's not so much they change, it's a case of if you told your kids what you were like when you were younger and stuff like this, they'll look at you and go, you are crazy. I don't see that in you. I can't believe that's you. You're telling me, like friends, I go, yeah, when like when the grandparents like, yeah, oh, they did this and they did that. You're like, oh no, stop it, shut up. I've got a front to like present here. And they'll look at you and go, really? You've changed. Like, and each year and each decade, what goes by, you're constantly changing. And if people like go, like the worst thing I think anyone can say is like, oh, you're just the same as when I met you back in like college or like when I was back in school. It's like, yikes. Have I not grown as a person? Have I been like that same, like put it this way, the person I was back in school and in college was a damn idiot in comparison to like the sort of world and wisdom which had built up over the course of time. If you haven't had that, I would say get out there and live life a little, you know?
Yeah, it's I think back to every one of my high school reunions, and the people who often are organizing those high school reunions are the ones who sadly the high school was the top of their life. And it's really something. But the other thing too, that you mentioned about, oh, I can't change, and they don't realize they are changing. It's this interesting limiting belief that they have. And the reality is, what I found is, let's say, going to your point about, oh, they can't change. And then, I like to ask them, a question like, well, is there somebody who you admire because they have been able to change? And they say, yes, so-and-so, whoever it happens to be. Well, the reality is our perception is a projection out to the universe. And if we look at somebody positively because they have characteristics that we want in our lives, then that's inside of us as well. We would not project that unless there was that part inside of us. We just have to let the conscious mind get out of the way from stopping it, because our conscious mind, which is only 5% of our brain,
yes,
has one key component that stops us from doing so much. It's our inner critic. And our inner critic is actually, by design, it's supposed to help protect us. That's what it is. But in most cases, what it does is it comes across as, the term we use here in the US, a Debbie Downer, like, oh, you can't do that because you will fail. You don't want to fail. You don't want to lose, whatever it happens to be. And so we decide, okay, we're not going to do that, because our inner critic, we listen to our inner critic, when the reality is, give it a try. I always like to remind people that, even in a completely positive mindset, as we were talking about earlier, we're going to run into roadblocks in whatever we're doing. But instead of looking at it as a setback, a roadblock, whatever it happens to be, consider it the universe is giving you feedback on your way to wherever you want to go. It's not a straight line. And, the only reason you've come into that next roadblock, that next setback, is because you've stretched yourself. You've grown, and you've grown farther where you didn't get to that point before. So it's actually a good thing. And that is what, you have to keep telling yourself, because if you focus on the negative, you're just going to attract more negative.
Yeah, I also think people fall into the trap of, okay, they look at the goal, the thing they want to achieve, the change they want to bring into their life and maybe into other people's lives, and they see the thing as a whole. And when they see it as a whole, it's like, oh my Lord, that is quite intimidating. How am I going to do that? And as you put it, the Debbie Downer comes in. Like all I got to say is that Debbie says all dark and twisted kind of things. And if you ever let that out on a piece of paper, they'll lock you up because they go, "What the hell?" It's like, yeah, it's like,
exactly.
yeah. But the way I simply say sometimes people should look at it is like, okay, if you want to improve your life, just focus on doing 2% each day to make your life better. Just 2%. And you go 2% each day. That's rather small and stuff like this. No, it's a compounding thing, as you mentioned earlier.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Basically, that 2%, 5 days, that's 10% better. And like, yeah, 20 days, like 10 days, 20% better. But with that 2%, you're always going to go up and down, up and down, up and down, even though you might not hit that 2% consistently on a daily basis. Now, if you like play that out 100 days down the road, you may have made your life 50, 60% better. Even if it's as small as 40% better, you're in a much better place than you were when you started. And continuing on that sort of path, who knows where you can go from there? And that's where I think great things are achieved. That's where I think that's where you can find, I think, your true purpose, by taking those little nibbles away, just bit by bit. Hey, as in your favorite film, Shawshank Redemption, one of your favorite films. Okay, look, little hammer, 20 years to get through to the other side, and then freedom, you know?
That's a wonderful analogy. Yeah, it's so true. And, you know, talking about the 2%, that's double of what one of my favorite books called The Slight Edge talks about. It says doing 1% better than your competition. 1%. And that will have a huge difference in your business over time. You just have to have that consistency. And I like how you're talking about the you know, putting the numbers behind it. So if you do 2% better each day, in 5 days you're doing 10% better. I remember learning that, if you know, I kept on thinking all these different books that I wanted to read, where am I going to find the time? And then I learned from a mentor of mine that just commit to reading 10 pages a day. And interestingly enough, now I'm getting to those books that I wanted to read, because 10 minutes a day is maybe, you know, 8 to 10 pages of a book. I don't read super fast. And I'm getting through and getting the knowledge that I'm looking for. And, you know, and I just, the commitment I had to make was I had to wake up 10 minutes earlier than I was waking up in the morning. That's it.
Yeah. I think it's also a thing where, like, rather than find the way, we find the excuse, you know? And with that sort of excuse, it's like, yeah, the restrictions, so many restrictions. And it's just like, okay, like if we like focus on finding the way, as you say, like keeping that positive mental attitude and like, yeah, pushing forward, who knows where we can go? Who knows what we can be? Who knows what sort of, hey, glory we can seek out, you know?
Absolutely. And not only what we can do for ourselves, but imagine what we can do for others. That's what I always love to think about too, is whether we're inspiring others, whether we are helping others in one way or another. Because that's the thing, when you start really taking steps for yourself and you start having that positive energy around you, you attract others who can sense that and who want to be part of that in some way. And it really is amazing. It's how you can build your community, your brand. It really is amazing. And I look back and, I made so many mistakes during my career, and letting emotions get the best of me in areas where I didn't need to let it bother me. But you know what? I don't, as I mentioned before, I don't ruminate about the past, about those things. I let it go, because you know what? That was part of my grand plan, I guess, to be the person I am today. I had to do those experiences in order to become the person I am today.
Yeah, no, like this is the thing. Yeah, I think that's another thing here. We sort of, as adults, we forget the lesson as kids. Now, if you take a child, like as long as they're physically, like take a baby, as long as they're physically capable, around about a year to 18 months, they're getting up and they're trying to walk. But here's the thing, they don't get up straight away. There's like they like to just even get up and try to roll over and get on their front. No, you're talking what, how many times? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1,000. Now, if you take some of that if you took someone who's an adult who's had maybe not the easiest time of it and they failed maybe more times than they succeeded, there would be a lot of kids which could, like babies, what would be able to walk would not even bother because it's like, nah, no, what's the point?
I failed. Yeah.
Yeah. And like the whole thing is, yeah, you might like failing is painful. Failing is not where the happy place is, but it's where the lesson is. And like, if you don't go out there, put yourself in a place of discomfort to like find these lessons, you're not going to actually grow without it. Because like I would say, you meet a team which has like won 1,000 times and had one loss, they'll most probably be rocked to the core and like going, what the hell? You give me a team which has lost like several times, and then when it comes to the championship game, they're like, oh yeah, I remember when we were like this, but we dug deep and we done this and we overcame. They know more about themselves. They understand where they are. They know their strengths and weaknesses. And yeah, more times they will eventually become champions at something, you know?
Yeah, they just need, it's the truth. It's realizing in many cases, because it's typically there's two bookends to our emotions. The one end is the fear aspect, and then the other aspect is the love aspect. And the fear aspect, to me, is actually a 4-letter acronym that stands for fictional evidence appearing real. Fictional evidence appearing real. So what that means is, going back to when we were talking about anxiety over the future, and saying, oh my gosh, it's going to go terribly. Well, how do you know that? It's fictional. You don't know. And our fear about what something's going to happen, how do you know that? Now, sure, if you're going to jump off of a tall building and you don't have some sort of cables or something to hold you.
I think you can see your future coming towards you rather quickly.
Exactly. Yes, that wouldn't, that is, not fictional. But we let ourselves make these stories up about what it cannot be. And it's ridiculous because we stop ourselves from growing by doing that. And it's instead of thinking about the ways that we can't do it, how about looking at some of the ways you can do it? I mean, if for example, instead of saying, there's no way I possibly could give a speech in front of 1,000 people, look at it and say, okay, well, what if you could? What would that look like? And you start breaking down that mental barrier about why is it that we're thinking we can't do this? It really is. We are our own worst enemies when it comes to our inner critic, but we also are our best. We should always be our biggest fan. We have to be, because if you think about it, if you don't believe in yourself, how can anyone else believe in you?
Yeah. But no, like the whole thing is people won't believe in you if you don't believe in yourself. And like
right.
With regards to the sort of inner critic, turn that critic into a cheerleader, it's a case of doing these small things step by step. like as you mentioned just now, speaking in front of 1,000 people. Like, don't start there. Speak in front of 2 people. Like, you know
Exactly.
what I mean? Speak in front of 10 and build up.
Mm-hmm.
Speak in front of strangers.
Mm-hmm.
Go with it again and again and again. Because this reminds me of like Les Brown when
Mm-hmm.
he wanted to be a radio DJ. So he would practice and practice and practice. And like I'm paraphrasing this story. He would practice and practice and practice. And like, it was like, yeah, one night, like there was this radio DJ on, and he was drunk, and like he was like
Oh.
drinking more and more, and like Les Brown was just there like, drink rock, drink rock. It's like, got a phone call from the radio, like from the producers, like, yeah, it sounds like he's a little bit drunk. Yeah, can you call one of the other guys? Or was like, I'll get on that right away. Put down the phone. It's like, still watching him. Mm-hmm. Half an hour later, it's like, yeah, how did it go with getting anyone else? No, no one else is here. It's just me and this radio station with, whoever the radio DJ was. It was,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you should take over. I was like, okay, yeah, okay, click. As he practiced, he was like, yeah, it's Les Brown on the radio. I was like, call these girls, like, yeah. And he practiced with that opportunity, which wasn't there. But it was a case at the time he started, like he practiced and practiced and practiced.
Mm-hmm.
When that opportunity arose, he could step right into it. And with that, look, I won't lie. Before listening to that, I didn't have that mindset. And like, you know what I mean? I can't say I'm a practitioner of that mindset on like a daily basis. If I said that, I would be a big fat liar. And like,
Mm-hmm.
no. And I think with a lot of people, they don't even like do a little bit of practice, or that's not even a thing whatever comes into their mind. Practicing for that future opportunity, which might not be there, but it's a case if it'll be ready to present itself for them like that one day.
Absolutely. And I mean, if we think about it in professional sports,
Mm.
the people who are not starting in the game, they are the people that have still practiced and practiced and practiced, because what are they? They're one injury away from going into the game.
Yeah.
And, I have seen it where people who think that the players who think that, oh, I'm not going to practice my heart out because who knows, I'm not going to play anyway. And then all of a sudden an injury happens, they have to come in and they don't succeed because they didn't take the mindset that it is important to practice. And if you've got people who are making big money as professional athletes, practicing, even though they may or may not get into the game, that's the whole thing that separates, the people who succeed from those that don't necessarily succeed, is that they're ready for the opportunity, as you gave with Les Brown. They're ready for the opportunity if and when it comes. And, that's the thing I always look at too. I mean, is there something that I need to practice so that I'm comfortable at the time that that the opportunity comes? For example, I've set a goal for myself that I'd like to do a TEDx talk at some point. And, that is something where I have different ideas, and in my mind, I practice it. I practice it in front of the mirror. I talk to different people about it, so that if and when that time comes where I'm given an opportunity, I want to be ready for it.
Yeah, like this, like keeping your sword sharp at all times. Like the only time I think you should let your sword get dull is when you shuffle off this mortal coil, because you have no use for it then. It's like, because you've earned yourself a long rest, a very long rest.
Exactly. Well, it's similar to having regret about stuff. So you don't want to be on your deathbed thinking back about, oh, if only I would have done this and this and that and that. I mean, instead of looking at it that way, you're on your deathbed saying, hey, I enjoyed my life, and I did what I wanted to do. I mean, whatever that is, it's all whatever your perception of what is success to you.
Yeah, I have to ask. Look, what is success to you? Because like success to you when you were like, yeah, got diagnosed with diabetes and everything like that was one thing. But what is it now today for you?
For me, it's making a positive difference. That hands down. It's whether it's with one-on-one interactions like you and I are having right now. It's working with my students. It's working with the employees at my company, whatever it happens to be. That it's my spouse, my kids, you name it, family, friends. It's making a positive difference, and that to me is the most important thing I can do.
Ah, making a positive difference. Yeah. Now, that is like, I like that. Making a positive difference. I wish more people could be on that page because, yeah, I think with in the world today, we need that more than ever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because the realm of negativity, which we like sort of living at this present time. Okay, global pandemic. Look, when I was a kid, like, and when you were a kid, like thermonuclear war was like a sort of regular thing, which you was always pressing in your mind.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it went away in the 90s. It went away in the like noughties, and now it seems to be uh creeping back in. Going,
It's very
hello.
scary, very
Yeah,
scary. Yeah.
yeah. And like, yeah, I think we just need more people to like be able to think, be on that positive like tip, and make that difference. Like with making a difference in your own life, like Mount Kilimanjaro, how did that come into this that phrase?
Well, that was because when I was turning 50 back in 2015, I thought about it, and I had gone, I was a couple of years outside of my divorce after a 20-year marriage. And I thought to myself, I really want to acknowledge myself in some way for turning 50, getting to 50. And so I started talking to different friends, and hiking is my number one favorite activity because I love connecting with nature and getting some exercise and having social interaction with others.
Mm.
And so I started saying, "Oh, where should I do?" And so I was looking at Australia. I was looking at South America's mountain ranges there, and then Kilimanjaro came up, and I thought to myself, "Ooh, that sounds really cool." I mean, the name alone is awesome, but the
Kilimanjaro.
it
Kill a
is.
man, gyro.
Exactly, exactly. And then one of my friends, my business partner, decided he wanted to do it as well. And then we decided, okay, what we're going to do is not only are we going to climb this mountain,
Uh-oh.
but at the very top of Kilimanjaro, which is, almost 20,000 feet high, is we're going to, hold up our company logo just to say, hey, the people who run this business can do some great things. And so we did that. But what was interesting is that so we did it in 6 days, 4.5 days up and a day and a half come down. Um, on day 4 going up, I fell on a steep edge and I thought I broke my left ankle. It swelled up like a grapefruit. And I basically just kept on. When it happened, I was just that inner critic. You know what happens,
Oh yeah.
and I was thinking to myself, "Oh my gosh, all my friends who know that I traveled halfway around the world to do this, and now what?" And so basically, we had a guide with us, and the both guides that were with us, because if you have one person in a group, it's one guide. Government says 2 or more has to have 2 guides for a situation like this.
Mm.
And the 2 guides helped me. They applied some sort of cream to my very swollen ankle, and then I had to limp for another, oh gosh, it was like 6 miles And fortunately I had poles. So I was limping on the poles, going very slow.
Yeah.
And while I was doing that, I told myself, I'm not a huge religious person, but I do believe in a higher power. And I told my higher power, I said, look, if I can still get to the top, that's all I'm asking. I just want to get to the top. And I kept, doing that, talking to my higher power, doing that. And here was the crazy thing. We got to the next campsite and they took the boot off of me. And instead of it looking like a grapefruit, it was looking like a lemon, so it had come down. And, and I remember both of the guides, their eyes were huge, because they were thinking, oh my God, because they figured that I was going to have to be stretchered down off the mountain. And so I was able to still complete it. And I have some pictures of me lying on, with the ankle being really swollen and stuff. And to me, it was a real case of believing in yourself and persevering. And the interesting thing is that I paid for it definitely later, because my ankle did not stop having problems, achiness and, having difficulty walking. It was 5 months after I returned before I could say that I could actually walk without a brace on it. And so I don't know how I managed to get up to the top of the mountain and also get off the mountain with that, but I did. And so there's, definitely the universe, supporting me in what I really, really wanted to do.
Yeah, like all I got to say is the universe, and also when it comes down to, I think when it comes down to when your mind, your body knows you've got to just do this thing, this one thing, it does the weirdest thing. This is why I'm so fascinated by this sort of miracle of the human body, because it's ever so fragile, but yet then it can be the most tough, rough and tumble thing in this world. So I kind of, oh yeah, but when it comes to things like that, human body's mind kicks in. It's like, okay, we're doing this. You get to the end of it, and it's like, oh, we're done. Yeah, we're done. Okay, drop everything. No.
It's true. I remember when I was in college, I used to commute to college on a route that was a very busy highway. And it had a right turn that when late in the day, a lot of cars would back up because it was so congested. And I remember I was driving down this highway and this truck drove by me very fast. And I was thinking, wow, that truck is going it was easily going way over the speed limit. And I kept on thinking, if he keeps that up, it's going to cause a problem, because most likely there's going to be cars backed up soon. And sure enough, I remember looking at the tires burning, with the brakes being on, and he swerves to miss the cars. He slams into the center divide, and then the truck comes forward again, blocking both lanes. And I pulled over because I wanted to make sure he was okay. And I remember I go over to him and I'm saying, hey, are you okay? And all he's saying, he's got blood all over his face. And he's saying, where's Reggie? Where's Reggie? And I'm thinking, who's Reggie? And it's my son. And I'm thinking, there's no kid in the cab of this semi truck.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, the little boy was in the middle of the freeway. He didn't have a seatbelt on. He had been ejected out of the truck and had landed on his face on the concrete. And he was screaming. And so I had to help his dad, trying to comfort the kid. Fortunately, an ambulance came, took the boy, and then the police were there. And I remember I'm telling them exactly what I saw, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm.
And then the police officer said, okay, you can go. I'll block traffic so that you can get in. And I was driving a stick shift at that time. And I remember, it was sort of like, this delayed shock. And as soon as I started driving, I put my car in gear, and all of a sudden my left leg started to spasm. Like it was this delayed shock. And, it must have looked like I couldn't drive the car because, it was going like this.
Police officers calling you back over. You're like, no.
Exactly. But I mean,
I don't believe you.
It's crazy how, and you hear about these stories about parents who rescue their kids from some horrible thing, like where they have superhuman strength and they can lift or something. It's true. It's amazing. As long as we don't think about it, we just do it.
Yeah. Remarkable. So interesting. Now, Mount Kilimanjaro, but like, this is the thing. What made you decide to do a podcast? I've got to ask you.
So it was kind of a premonition to COVID, because at the end of 2019, I was looking at my LinkedIn connections, and I had maybe roughly 1,000 people. And I thought, you know what? I haven't done much to connect with these people in a while. And so I thought, what could I do to add value? And doing a podcast was the idea to do that. And so I decided to create a very short podcast, Winning at Business and Life podcast, that interviewed. I asked a lot of these people who I was connected with, would you like to be interviewed? And so what was wonderful for me is that when COVID happened, I started doing 3-4 episodes a week. And so I was keeping busy connecting with people and distributing it for people. And so it was really a fun thing to do, to be able to connect and help people out, going back to making a positive difference. And so that's why I decided to do it. And at one point, I had people who knew me more because of my podcast than I did people who knew about me just in general. So it was pretty fun. And then, I started getting involved with a lot of different other things. And so the podcast had to be put on the back burner now. But, I did 310 episodes in 2 years. So there's still plenty of them there that, thank you. So
like 310 episodes in 2 years. Like, you know what I mean? That is a hefty achievement, because like, this is the thing, like, how does it normally go? 4 or done is normally for a podcast. Like, they go, there's 2 million podcasts out there. And I go, yeah, but I'll tell you this now, like, the amount of them which have gone past 4 episodes and they're done, it'll be a lion's share of that. But yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I read that, what was it? It was 90, either 89 or 91%. I don't remember exactly, but when I first started doing this, said 89 to 91% of all podcasts never make it to episode 10. Never. So so that's exactly it. And so for me, it was a fun experience. I got to meet some great people. I made some great friends from it. There were some guests where I would, were forgettable. And I had a couple of them who were so self-promotional that I kind of felt dirty after I got off the call with them. But in general, most of them, I really enjoyed. Of the 300 episodes, I'd say probably at least 275 of them I learned something new, and that's something great. That that, again, being a lifelong learner.
Absolutely, this is the thing. With like, it's one of those things where, okay, with regards to life and like lifelong learning, when you're young and like you've everyone's heard it. It's like, yeah, you best appreciate this time in your life. You'll never get it again. It's like, okay, yeah, right. What are you talking about? Because like when I was younger, Four Weddings and a Funeral came out, and I was like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I was like, Four Weddings and a Funeral. I was like, why would anyone just do like weddings and funerals? That is preposterous. Makes no sense to me. It was like, oh, naivety.
Absolutely. And that
You,
was and that movie taught me a word that is so that I use on occasion in conversations. You can probably guess what that is.
no, Pete, no, Professor Pete. You're gonna have to say the word, like, yeah, because like
it's bugger.
it's what?
It's bugger.
Bugger.
Because all anytime, yeah, but is it bugger or but with the way that the way that that most of the characters in there were saying it, it sounded to me like bugger.
Bugger. What? Oh, what? Bugger. It's like, yeah. Just like, yeah, you can know if you're quick, bugger. Oh, if someone really screwed up, or like you're in trouble, it's bugger.
Exactly.
It's like, there's many ways to use bugger, but it's like,
exactly. It's added to my vocabulary, and I'm so and each time I use it, people start laughing because it's that one. And I've worked with so many colleagues in the UK, and using different terminology, like rubbish is another one that is a fun one for me to use with my UK counterparts, because they laugh because no American says rubbish.
It's like, oh my Lord. It's like, yeah, it's like, yeah, put the rubbish in the bin. Yeah, what is this rubbish?
Exactly.
The bin? What? Are they talking about aircraft? No. The bin over there. The rubbish over there. Americans, bloody hell. I'm like, this thing. Like, yeah, when you're young, you just don't realize it because, yeah, you're like, you got your whole crew around you, like, yeah. So you're going out, you're meeting people, you're talking, all of these interactions are going on. You hit your 20s, you're still doing the same thing. But around about your sort of like mid to late 20s, people start dropping off. 30s. Like the people drop off more because, hey, the reason why they're dropping off, they're like going to far-flung regions of the world, they're having kids, they're settling down, all of this. But as time goes by, each and every moment, if you used to go out and hang out with these people, you would hang out with other people, you have these conversations. Some, like a lot of the conversations, maybe like a little bit of drunken bullshit, but that's another story. Exactly. And then, like, yeah, like you'll have some remarkable conversations. You'll go, I have no idea where that came from. But each decade goes by, you have less and less conversations. You stop growing. You get, as they say, set in your ways. The reason why you get set in your ways is because you're not actually having these fertile conversations, which will make you maybe think a different way, which might challenge the thoughts you might have. Well, like, yeah, the bad ideas come up, the good ideas come up, they clash. And hopefully the bad ideas fall down and the good ideas evolve and grow into something more for you personally, or maybe in the world as a whole. But time, and like with regards to being able to have 300 plus conversations with people in a 2-year period for your podcast, like, hey, I would simply say revive it, and have more conversations. Keep that continuous growth. Keep it going forward, I say.
Yeah, I am very tempted to bring it back. I may structure it slightly different. And but and I did tweak it as I went along.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it is definitely on my back burner as something that each time, like when the URL comes up for renewal and stuff, and I go, oh, should I keep that? And I say, absolutely. So, so it will come back at some point for sure.
Ah, excellent, excellent. I have to ask now, like you seem to be a very insightful, impish fella. I'm just gonna say, yeah. Now, what was the last thing what gave you that sense of gratitude?
My favorite stress relief tool. Um, what gave me this last part? Oh, the gratitude, small or large, are you asking?
Well, like this is the thing. Like, you know what? Because I'm greedy, I'll take both.
Okay. Okay. So small happens on a daily basis.
Mhm.
And my wife and I do a gratitude exercise every night. And we ask each other, what are we grateful for? And that we're able to be able to recap the day and end it on a positive light. And so far today, what I would say, I'm grateful for having this conversation with you, because I believe that you and I have built a friendship just in this conversation, and that
The
is something
checks
I'm
in the
very
post.
grateful. And it is. I'm truly grateful for that, because there's something about being able to connect with somebody, and that is something that I don't take very lightly. So to me, that would be one that comes to mind. And then from a bigger perspective, I'm grateful for my health,
Mm.
because without it, nothing else matters. And the reason I say that is because, you know, if and everybody can relate to a time when they were sick, whether it was flu or something else, and they were really sick and they just were lying in bed.
Mm.
And I said, if you think back to that time, did you feel like doing anything other than lying in bed? And he said, no. And the reality is, well, when you're like that, you're no good to the people in your life that are important to you. You're no good to your job or your business. You're no good to anybody. You just because you don't have that energy.
Mm.
So don't take your health for granted. And I don't. It's something that I'm grateful for every day. In fact, I have a note on my computer here, my monitor, that just says the gift of health is keeping me alive. And that is something that I don't take lightly.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Because this is the thing. Like one of the things I often like say, it's like, yeah, there's three things you should focus on, like fitness, intellect, skill set.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
basically, as you say, if you don't have fitness, it's the bedrock. If you can't do the other two, you can't like basically work on your intellect, you can't work on your skill set, and like yeah, it, everything falls down. And as time goes by, you do need to have maintain your energy, keep that fitness going.
Mm-hmm,
It's not
mm-hmm.
like yes, it's not like oh teenage self which could roll out of bed and I say I'm ready.
Exactly.
Yeah, like let's
at,
go.
at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, because
Yeah.
if you're a teenager, you're always staying up super late.
Oh yeah. What time is it? What day is it? It's like you okay?
So I remember I had a friend of mine when I first had my kids, and they said, I'll give you this one bit of advice as a parent. And I said, sure, what's this? When your kids get to be teenagers, keep this in mind: you love them, but you don't like them.
Just like the kid, hey dad, it's like walk around the corner. Like,
Exactly.
Just like no. Like forensic CSI thorough. They're thorough.
Exactly. They can find out. They can find out.
It's like, you ungrateful little parasite. Just eat my food coming in. It's like, yeah.
Exactly.
How you doing, Professor Pete? Okay, I'm okay. I'm okay. It's like, kids again. No, I hear you. I hear you. Well, no, I look forward to that roller coaster when it hits me.
Yeah, it is something. It really is.
Okay.
And I can't tell you any of the pleasant stories of that.
No. This is the thing. Like, what can I say? I have seen, but I don't know with regards to parenthood. It's like I see like on the sideline and I go, But like, yeah, when like being in the thick of it, going through the day to day, and no, this is the trick life does, and I've seen it because like, okay, if you've got two kids, one will be super chill and the other one will be standing on the roof howling at the moon.
That's actually pretty darn true. It really is. And, the funny thing too, is that I was on an airline once, and I just thought that this was so hilarious. So they were going through the safety process, and they get to the point in the event of a loss in cabin pressure, the mask will come down. It says, put the mask on yourself first before putting it on someone else or helping someone else. And they said, if you're flying with a child or someone, I remember this is, or someone who's acting like a child, make sure you put the mask on yourself first before helping them. But this is the part that was hilarious. They said, the flight attendant says, if you're flying with more than one child, put the mask on the child with the most potential first.
That is Sophie's choice in a very long time. Like,
exactly.
Okay. Need you guys to do a math problem for me real quick. Okay. It's like, I've got your report cards here. Oh, there you go. Like, yeah, Sebastian, come on. Like, you son of a bitch. Oh,
exactly.
It was a false alarm. Daddy was joking. Duncan, Duncan, come back, Duncan.
Well, it's funny. My daughter, when I told her that, she said, well, that would be me. Very clear on
that. Yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah, it would be you. It's like, Dad, it would be me. Sure, yeah, it would be you. It's like, I remember this in a few years.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, my Lord. Oh, no, we're almost at the end. Like, now, final question I've got to ask. Now, what do you see how your journey is going to unfold with this all in the next, say, few years?
Well, that's a good question. I think I'll probably be teaching a few more classes with a few more universities, because back earlier in my career, I was teaching for several universities, and I really enjoy it. And so I'm only teaching with one university right now. So I probably will try and inspire more business students as I do now. That would be one. I probably as well I've been looking with my wife into potential locations to live when we're fully retired.
Ah.
And Europe continues to be very high on the list. So we have, a couple countries in particular, Portugal and Spain, that we're going to be looking at that are positive for U.S. expats. And so
You don't
that's
want to go.
something.
You don't want to go there. You want somewhere wet.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
don't be tempted by that beautiful sun shining, like European, like culture and stuff. Look, come somewhere cultural, which is a little bit damp and stuff like that. Yeah. Ah, ah. Look, can show you a door which is older than the United States. It's okay. Yeah. There you go. There you go.
I've been to the UK. I know exactly what you're talking about. So
I
so
didn't say the UK. I was talking about Scotland. Yeah.
oh, Scotland. Yeah. Well, you know what? I actually want to visit Scotland. I've never been, so I do want to go. I have a close friend of mine whose daughter lives in Scotland, and so he goes once or twice a year, and he always posts these beautiful pictures.
Go to Edinburgh. Right? I've been to Aberdeen. I've been through Edinburgh, but yeah, it's got the castle there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All I'd say is Aberdeen, it rains a lot. Oh, you'll be
Oh,
right
I
at
can
home.
imagine.
Yeah, you'll be right at home. Yeah, no, I saw that. Go to Aberdeen. Yeah, you'll love it there. Say, you were saying, sorry.
Yeah. So that would be looking at doing some sort of expat, as well as travel in other areas of the world that I haven't experienced yet that I want to. So there's a lot of different areas that are there for while I have my health that I definitely want to experience.
Outstanding. Outstanding. As I said, that was the last question. Our time has come to an end. Professor Pete. Like, yeah, I'm not gonna call you by your first full name. It's just Professor Pete from now on. Like, you're Professor Pete to me from now on.
Perfect.
Time immemorial. Yes. Professor Pete, can you tell the lovely people how they can find you out there on these interwebs?
Sure. The easiest way is to reach out to me on my website, petealexander.com, or, I'm on LinkedIn, Professor Pete Alexander. So that's a perfect place to connect.
Perfect. I'll put all the links in the description, in the show notes, so you can find Professor Pete. Yeah, forget about the Alexander. He's Professor Pete from now on, and for all of us. So yeah, Professor Pete, thank you for coming on today. You have been wonderful. You have been superb. Perfect in every way.
Miwa, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. I've had an absolute ball here, and thank you so much to the listeners for listening as well.
Outstanding. You hear that? I'd like to also thank you, my friends, my life warriors, who are sticking with us up until this point in the podcast. Thank you for joining us with this journey. Please stay safe, stay well, be awesome, be excellent, be fantastic. Be all the positive bees you can be in this world and then some. Have a great day, guys. Love ya. Peace. And we are